dreamed of rain, and the rains came, and peace swept over the land. And those flowers blew in the desert, and the air is fresh and clear. I dreamed of rain, and the rains came, and peace swept over the land. I dreamed of rain, and the rains came, and peace swept over the land.
Beautiful, beautiful. All righty. There was a Bible salesman going through the South selling Bibles. And that's what Bible salesmen do, you know. And he came up to this one house, and he knocked on the door and asked the man, you know, told him, he gave him his spiel and told him I was selling Bibles, you know. And the man said, no, I don't need one of those. I've had one of those. And he said, oh, really? You have a Bible? And he says, oh, yeah, I found one up in the attic, old thing. It was old. And he said, oh, really? What kind of Bible was it? He says, I don't know. Somebody named Guten somebody. And he said, what? You had a Gutenberg Bible? You found a Gutenberg Bible? And he said, yeah, Gutenberg. That was the guy's name. And he said, well, you had a Gutenberg Bible? And, you know, he said, well, yeah, what about it? And he says, well, where is it? I want to see it. I want to see the Gutenberg Bible you have. And he said, no, man, I threw that away a long time ago. He said, you threw it away? He said, yeah, I threw it away. Some guy named Martin Luther had scribbled all in it. Well, for those of you who are not aware, the Gutenberg Bible is the first really printed Bible that we have in the world. And really, to be honest, most of us wouldn't have any awareness about the Bible if it weren't for the Gutenberg Bible. Most people had not ever read the Bible until it was actually printed by Gutenberg, and he only printed a very few of them. Most of them were actually hand-scribbled, handwritten. They were actually called manuscripts. They weren't even called a book. And so, interestingly enough, even most of the priests during those times had never actually read the Bible, which I thought was fascinating. And I was thinking about, I get a lot of questions about the Bible and about what that really is and what it's for. And let me ask you this. How many of you have read the Bible? Oh, good. How many of you read it cover to cover? How many of you read it cover to cover more than once? Okay, I know who I'm going to get the questions from then. Well, how many of you grew up and had the Bible as an integral part of your education growing up in some way, either through church or what in some way? Most of you, yeah. Most of us, many of us have. Let me ask you something. What is one of your favorite verses? Anybody? Beatitudes, yeah.
Jabez.
Say it again?
Jabez prayer.
Jabez prayer, yeah. What else? 1 John 4:8. Can you say some of it for us?
Who does not love does not know God, for God is love.
Beautiful, yeah. Who else?
Philippians 4:13. I do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Beautiful, yeah.
As man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Very good. Awesome. All right, now tell me about some Bible story that you remember from your experiences with the Bible. Tell me, what's a good Bible? Yes. Daniel in the lion's den. Wonderful. What else? David and Goliath. What's another favorite story? Noah. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Now, those of you who didn't grow up with the Bible, can you tell me something that you know of from the Bible? What? Anybody? Tell me something. Something back, Kate back in the back there. Can you say? She's coming out. Where's she? Yeah.
Joseph and his coat.
Joseph, the coat of many colors. Yeah, okay. And those of you who weren't raised up with an education in the Bible. What's another story? Is there a quote or any phrase that you maybe have heard or are aware of?
Good Samaritan.
The Good Samaritan. Yeah, okay. Awesome. The loaves and fishes. Yes, absolutely. Well, I'd be willing to bet that even someone in another religion and another country would be able to tell you something about the Bible. Probably a story or a quote or a phrase or an idea of some kind, which is pretty interesting to me. I mean, it is actually fairly amazing in some way. So whether you've read the Bible or have a part of that in your upbringing, it actually is a part of what Charles Fillmore called our race consciousness. It is actually immersed in our subconscious mind, whether we recognize it or realize it or not, even if we've never read it. Because it's a part of that race consciousness, and we're all connected through race consciousness. There's actually a universal awareness. And you may have different feelings about the Bible, but the reality is the Bible in some way has had an effect on all of us in our world and our lives. That's because primarily, I believe, because the images and the stories and the names and the places and the characters and all that what Carl Jung called, these are archetypal awarenesses. They're archetypal images. Now, what does that mean? It means that they represent some aspect of our own human psyche. And so every part of the Bible in some way represents some aspect of you and I on a psyche level. Psyche meaning basically soul. On a soul level, it's really a story about us. And all of the stories and all the characters in some way represent some aspect of our nature. Mark Twain once said, "It ain't those parts of the Bible that I understand that bothers me. It's the ones that I do understand." I think that's true for a lot of us. Sometimes we have awarenesses about what's being taught in the Bible, but we're not really sure how we live that. And so part of the study is to learn, and part of our work together is really how do we learn to live these different principles. Glenn Mosley was one of my teachers and was a wonderful Unity minister and was the director of Unity Worldwide Ministries for a number of years. And he wrote a wonderful work about the Bible. One of the things he says, among Orthodox Christian views of the Bible, one discovers that the Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopalian, Anglican, and Reformed churches are in similar streams of thought. Each views the Bible as the clear, perfect, inspired, and authoritative Word of God and guide of man. The fundamentalist, including the Baptists, Nazarenes, Pentecostal, hold views of the Bible similar to the group previously discussed. However, this second group, that is the fundamentalists, add the doctrine insistence that the individual conscience must be the interpreter of the Bible. And in practice, this means that the individual conscience can be relied upon as the absolute interpreter of the Bible, so long as the conscience proceeds in harmony with the fundamentalist doctoral perspective. You catch that last part? So your conscience is what decides what's in the Bible as long as it fits within our doctrine. Make sense? Unity has a different understanding about that. And that is that we don't really have a doctrine that says you have to interpret the Bible this way. However, one of the things that Charles Fillmore really helped to amplify, I don't know that he necessarily brought it into the world because there were many who actually looked at the Bible from a more metaphysical understanding, even before Charles Fillmore. But Charles Fillmore really brought it to light in a way that really, I think, helped so many people see that there are many understandings and layers of the Bible. How many of you ever had a 7-layer dip? Have you ever just eaten off the top layer? Well, if you take the Bible absolutely literally, basically what you're doing is just eating the very top layer of the Bible. Not to say you can't do that, but however, you're going to find that you're missing an awful lot if you only dip into the top layer of the dip and only of the top layer of the Bible. See, the Bible has different levels of awareness and understanding that really bring an amazing flavor to our lives, an amazing awareness of greater possibilities for you and I and who and what we are here to be and to experience. One of the things, of course, is I was reading and studying up on the Bible, and I came across a George Carlin quote, who I think is hilarious. And he says, "I was thinking about how people seem to read the Bible a whole lot more when they get older. Then it dawned on me, they're cramming for final exams." Well, we don't necessarily see that you have to be concerned about final exams, because we actually do have an understanding, the belief system in unity, that comes pretty much from the Bible, that says life is eternal. And it's an eternal understanding that we have, that we are here not just to go from point A to point B, but we have an ongoing process that we're a part of and that we're participating in. One of my favorite Bible scholars today is John Shelby Spong. How many of you familiar with John Shelby Spong? John Shelby Spong was an amazing scholar who was an Anglican priest and a bishop in the Anglican Church. And when he retired, he really is one of the best-known Bible scholars. He wrote an amazing work called Rescuing the Bible from Fundamentalism. And if you haven't had a chance to read that book and you want to really get some real clear awareness that is not a fundamentalist view of the Bible, it's really more in line with what unity understands from the Bible, read that book, Rescuing the Bible from Fundamentalism. You see, the Bible is a tool. And it's a tool to help each and every one of us discover who and what we truly are, and how we go through different levels and experiences of consciousness so that we really can move from what Charles Fillmore calls the Adamic state, which is meaning Adam, which is in the very beginning of the Bible. For those of you who haven't read that, it's in the Genesis, Adam really represents our state as a very young, you might say, very immature consciousness, not quite aware, but growing in consciousness, all the way up and through Jesus Christ, who represents the divine nature within every one of us, moving up into the highest level of who and what we are called to be, really learning to live into our best version of ourselves. And so what he is saying is that the Bible is actually a tool, and it's a guide for helping us to learn and explore and discover. And what you'll find is you read different characters in the Bibles, and they all represent some aspect of you as you go through this transition from Adamic consciousness all the way up into expressing the divine nature. And so it's a fascinating story. It's a good read, by the way. However, I will say, if you want a good way to get some nice sleep, go through some of the earlier books when they talk about who was betrothed to who and who begat who. I'll tell you, you'll sleep like, But it's not everything in the Bible necessarily is meant to be interpreted metaphysically. Some of it is simply factual. Some of it is historical or intended to be just a record of sorts. And yet, I'm convinced in some ways everything in life can be understood and explored and discovered metaphysically. Because everything that we look at and see out here in the world in some ways reflects an aspect of our consciousness. You realize that? And so it's not only that we can interpret the Bible metaphysically, which I think is probably one of the most deep ways that we can do that. And when I discovered this interpreting the Bible metaphysically, it was like, oh my gosh, you're kidding! I missed all this for all these years. And then when I started working with it, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is amazing! I couldn't stop. It was like it's fascinating work. And so, well, a hammer is an amazing tool. Wouldn't you agree? I like hammers. They work pretty well, don't they? They're excellent for putting nails into buildings. We had roofers out not long ago, and boy, you could hear them just going to town. Actually, they use but even before that, they were using the hammer. And a hammer is an amazing tool, can create some amazing, beautiful things, can it? But you can do some really serious damage with a hammer, can't you? And unfortunately, the Bible is the same way. People oftentimes use the Bible not as a way of trying to explore and grow, but they oftentimes use it as a tool or even a weapon to try and get people to be the way they think you're supposed to be. Know what I'm talking about? Anybody ever had that experience before? So that's not the purpose of the Bible. The purpose of the Bible, if you're using the Bible in that way, I suggest to you, you are really misusing that beautiful gift that we have. And it's really a way of helping us to explore and understand how amazing our life is and can be. In Atom Smashing Power of Mind, Charles Fillmore says, not only our Bible, but the scriptures of all nations of the world testify to the existence of an invisible force moving men and nature in their various activities. And so we have ways that we can experience and understand, not only from the Bible, this amazing power and force that works through each of us. But one of the things that Charles and Myrtle did was that they studied all world religions. Do you realize that? And they studied the scriptures from all the world's religions, and they really gained a lot from all of that. And what they did, though, is they really did come back to founding a lot of the metaphysical understandings and teachings based upon these Bible awarenesses, because they saw, in a real sense, a collective that really gave them the kind of a full range of these spiritual and metaphysical principles in story form and in forms of dreams. And most of the Bible, actually, you realize, was written, really were dreams. A good bit of it was. How many of you have dreams? How many of you remember your dreams? That's probably a better way to put it. One of the things I love doing is helping people to understand what the dreams are trying to tell them. It's one of my favorite. I just love doing that. And one of the things I've discovered and learned about that is that your dreams are also some representation of you. And every character in it somehow represents some aspect of your psyche. Isn't that interesting? Dreams are some part of your psyche, and so is the Bible. The Bible is really an allegorical story form that is speaking to us, for the most part, in what many call night language. You know what I mean by night language? Night language is really more right brain. And if we read Bible more from our right brain, we'll find that the right brain is really more what deals with poetry and images and music and all of that. But if we go to the Bible and try and look at it with our left brain, it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of times what people do is try to make the left brain understanding of the Bible, and then they take that and they try to make it into rules and principles and laws out here in the world, rather than really looking at how it is something that is reflective of our own consciousness and how we can then use that to help our consciousness to transform into a different awareness. Does that make sense? Martha Smock, who was the director of Silent Unit for many years, said, "Those who read between the lines have discovered that the Bible veils evolution in rites, ceremonies, and acts of personalities." So there are ideas and understandings and truths that are being presented in all of these different rituals and rites that you see in the Scripture, but also in the characters that are there. And the fact is that the entire Bible, according to Charles Fillmore, is man and his various states of mind represented as persons, tents, tabernacles, and temples. So all of those symbols that you see in the Bible represent something within each one of us. Metaphysics defined, this is from Ed Rabel, who was one of my instructors when I was in the ministerial school, an amazing metaphysician and Bible teacher. He says, metaphysics always, as I use it, means that which is true concerning the inner life of every human being, regardless of time, place, or circumstances. That's what metaphysics really means. It really has to do with the inner life. So one of the things that we can do in terms of metaphysically understanding the Bible is starting off even in Genesis, when it says that God created the heaven and earth. Well, metaphysically, the term heaven and earth actually represents our inner state and our outer state. that part of ourselves that is aware of what's going on within us, and that part of our consciousness that's really focused on what's going on out here in the world. It's a very simple metaphysical awareness and understanding. And so it really kind of helps us to understand that all of these different things are relating in some way to our soul, our psyche, and then how that's being brought forth and manifested out here in the world. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, also says, as man is a threefold being, spirit, soul, and body, so the Bible is a trinity in unity. It is a body as a book of history, a soul as a teacher of morals, and a spirit as teacher of mysteries of being. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was a great insight. So when we are thinking about the Bible, it's not, sometimes I have seen and experienced people basically worshiping the Bible. And to me, in some ways, worshiping the Bible in and of itself is kind of like worshiping an idol. Because the reality is, the Bible is actually here not to be worshiped, but to help you discover that within you that is deserving of that worship, which is your unique divine nature. We're each created in the image and after the likeness of the divine. And the purpose of the Bible is not for you to put that out there on the Bible, but to let that Bible be something that helps to reveal that within you, so that you can see and experience more of your nature, of who you've come here to be. Bob Sicking was a well-known Unity minister, and he was actually on my licensing and ordination committee many years ago. And he wrote a book that called Light for Our Age, which I really, really liked. He said, our path on the journey to willed self-awareness can be made clearer from time to time when we see the Bible as a roadmap that has led others before us. So it's a roadmap. A map is a great tool. Julie and I discovered that some time ago when we went down to Port Aransas and our GPS wasn't working. And we were looking everywhere for a map. And you can't find maps anymore. Did you know that? They just have vanished off of the face of the earth, it seems, unless you order one from online, which we couldn't do in that moment. It's just, and when we couldn't find a map anywhere, we finally did find a little map. We were actually on a placemat that gave kind of one of those cartoon maps, but it gave us enough information that we could find our way back home. We all need a map, don't we? We all need a map in some way, or we need our GPS. I love the term GPS because it also stands for God Positioning System. That's a great term, isn't it? God Positioning System. So we need something to help us move through life in ways that help us to kind of avoid some of the challenges and difficulties, avoid some of the problems. And that's what the Bible was intended to do. It was intended to be there as a help in our unfolding so that we can really discover more of our unique divine nature and really move into that place of becoming more of what God intended us to be. But I'll share with you something that Martin Luther, who wrote in that book earlier I mentioned, Martin Luther, who was the head of the great Protestant Reformation, he said, God writes the gospel not in the Bible alone, but also on trees and in flowers and in clouds and stars. So the presence of the divine is always trying to reveal itself to us in multiple ways. And the Bible is an amazing, wonderful gift that allows us to do that. But unless we are opening our hearts and minds to the inspiration from within ourselves, the Bible actually becomes something that's pretty challenging and difficult to really comprehend and understand. And I came across this wonderful quote from Ray Charles, one of my favorites. He says, there's nothing written in the Bible or Old or New Testament that says, if you believe in me, you ain't got to have no more troubles. Doesn't mean you're not going to have any troubles. But it does mean that you have something that's going to help us to get some insight or awareness that really sparks something from within our own spirit to help us, that'll make us be able to move through those troubles in a different way, perhaps, to move to a different level of understanding. So next week, my plan is, and actually probably for a few weeks, I'm going to take some of the favorites that you mentioned earlier, and we're going to look at some of those metaphysically and look at how those can really help us in understanding our own soul's growth and our own nature, and how we can deal with and overcome the different challenges in life. There's just richness in some of these stories. So hope you'll be with us next week as we explore more metaphysically what the Bible's trying to teach us. And let's move into our music and meditation time.
As I step into this sacred space, I know my source is you. As I step into this sacred space, I know my source is you.
So let's just take a nice deep breath, breathing in and out. And just allow yourself to relax into the body temple, moving into that sacred space within your own heart and being, moving into that place of stillness, of quiet, just letting all the sounds be a mantra for you that bring you even more into the center, even more into the stillness. And let your heart be open to knowing that divine nature is your source. It is, in unity we call it the God within, the Christ within, the divine within. And just listen to that still small voice like a little child. Sometimes it tries to get our attention. And just know that it's perfect. Speaking to you in images, in awarenesses, in symbols, and everything that comes into your awareness is showing up to reveal where you are now and where you're moving to and where you can move to. So breathing into that sacred heart space, just take a moment in the stillness and quiet of your being. To be uplifted, to be transformed, to be loved, to be blessed. Breathe now into that heart space. Let it expand and grow with the energies of love and light and peace. And just know that you are being always guided to your highest good. Just listen as you go from here into the rest of your day, your week. Take another nice deep breath now. Let your awareness be in this room, this time, this place. Trust in that knowing that there's something within you that is always available to reveal to you the next step, and the one after that, and the one after that. Take another nice deep breath and be present here and now. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and give thanks. And so it is.